Hello everyone, my name is VWZ32 and today I'm going to be doing something different on my channel. I'm going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite games, The Last of Us, which I have played a number of times, a few times, and I have seen many playthroughs of on YouTube, some good, some bad, some downright ugly, and I have compiled a list of the most commonly overlooked things or missed items in a game, and even myself included, I've missed some of these at one time or another. And I've broken it down into 10 different categories: Firefly pendants, comics, letters and notes, trading manuals, locations, loot, conversations, Ellie's jokes, other stuff, and Easter eggs. So let's start off with the Easter eggs. First of all, there's some in the game. First of all, there is if you go in the toy store, when you're with Sam and Henry while you're in the toy store, if you look around, some people don't do that for some reason, you'll actually find Uncharted board games. And I believe there's also another board game of note. Also, at some point in time in the game, you will find a Game of Strife board game, which is obviously it's obviously the Game of Life with a new name. You can actually find a Game of Strife as well in Uncharted 4 when you are playing in the when you're playing as young Nathan in the orphanage. Sorry. Also, there's various movie posters, music posters, and music albums that obviously mimic actual posters and albums and titles. Like, for instance, there's one that you'll find, it comes to mind, that is obviously ripped off the Transporter movie poster, except it's a different name. Also, the Is story that you see in the notes and letters you find throughout the sewers and in the suburbs, that's actually based on a book that was written by someone, I don't remember who, and on that character, same name. So that's an interesting little tidbit. Let's move on to the other stuff. First of all, when you are going to the hospital and you're outside the bus depot, you will see, I believe it's a bus stop, with a poster advertising the zoo and advertising giraffes, which is a foreshadowing of what happens moments later when you see the giraffes. And most people miss that, despite the fact that it's pretty obvious right there. Also, when you're in the toy store with Sam and Henry, and Sam wants the toy and he throws it down, when you're not looking, Ellie will pick up the toy, put it in her backpack. We know she gives it to him later on. But what most people don't realize is if you look behind you, you'll see Ellie pick it up if you're lucky. Also, interesting tidbit is the game is actually, the second half of the game kind of parallels the first half of the game from middle to the end, and then from the beginning to the middle, and then from the middle to the end. It's basically a reversal of the same thing, and you can tell that from the beginning and the end of the game. Similar things happening, like Joel carrying his baby girl and being confronted by a military force, etc., etc. I won't go into too much more about that. You can figure it out for yourself. Also, one thing people seem to miss when they're playing Left Behind is that both Winston and Riley are mentioned in the main game. Riley is mentioned right at the very end of the game by Ellie as being her best friend, and yet when people go and play Left Behind, they seem completely oblivious to who Riley is. And Winston is actually mentioned in the main game as well, which most people seem to forget or miss. Ellie mentions that he taught her how to ride a horse when they're at Tommy's Dam. And one more thing people seem to miss, when you're going through the suburbs, you'll see Sam and Ellie throwing some darts. What most people fail to realize, or many people fail to realize, is you can actually throw a dart yourself. Spoiler alert, you completely miss the board, but it's a fun little thing that people seem to miss. Number 3 on the list, Ellie's jokes. People seem to miss Ellie's jokes because, and the reason why people miss so much of this stuff is because many times I'm watching these breakthroughs and people are just sprinting through areas and running right into enemies and missing stuff, or they're just running around looking for stuff and they're missing stuff and they're straying too far from Ellie, or they're staying away from Ellie for too long and they're missing conversation points, which I'll get into in a bit, and also her jokes. She tells the jokes in Pittsburgh after the first fight, while you're walking towards the hotel, also in the hotel, when you go up the step ladder, and in the suburbs and elsewhere. Number 4 on the list, conversation pieces. People miss conversation pieces all the time with Ellie and other characters. For instance, one time, she's looking at a poster with a skinny model. There's a conversation point there. There's a movie poster later on in Pittsburgh, which there's a conversation about the ice cream truck in the suburbs, etc., etc. People just missing conversation points all over the place and missing out on stuff. Number 5, the loot. And there's a lot of loot I'm going to talk about, and it's kind of all over the place. It's in no particular order. First of all, when you're at the wharf, there's 2 sieves you can find that people seem to miss again because they're just running through everything. One of them is in the warehouse office. You'll come across one if you look around. And the other one is at the wharf, the last area before you go to Roberts, on top of some barrels. And again, people just seem to miss that one. Also, when you're in the hotel and you go to get the ladder, you'll see the ladder is leaning up against some scaffolding. And if you climb up that, and people do climb up that, there's nothing there. However, there is something on the other side which you can get, but most people just grab the ladder, put it up against the balcony and climb up and completely avoid that. What that is, I believe, is either some supplements or some gears, I don't remember. But all you have to do is put the ladder on the other side of the scaffold, go up, and you'll get that. But people, despite the fact that it's pretty obvious that it's there, miss it or avoid it. Next up, when you're heading into Billstown, right at the start of that level, that part, if you head to the right-hand side, you'll see a sewer. There's also one on the left-hand side, but there's nothing there. But on the right-hand side, you will find some loot there, some items. So it's worth looking around, walking around areas, because you'll find stuff like that. Another one is when you're in Billstown, when you go into the gymnasium and you have to deal with a bloater. A lot of people, they'll kill the bloater, they'll kill the other infected, and then they run out of there. Don't. Walk around. Investigate. There's stuff to find, including, most importantly, in the storage room that the bloater was in. You will find various loot and items to help you out, and it's worth checking out. Another one, when you're with Bill, is when you're in the church on the second level. Before you head out the window, there is a room people seem to miss all the time on the right-hand side. Always look on the right-hand side. There's lots of stuff on the right-hand side for some reason. But there's a room on the right-hand side. It's Bill's room. You go in there. There's all sorts of crafting supplies and loot. And Bill will even make a comment that, that's my room. Don't go in there. But you do anyways and take his stuff. But people seem to miss that somehow. Next one is when you're in the suburbs. After you and Ellie almost drown. You're at the part where Sam and Henry go one way. You and Ellie go the other way, and you check out this boat, and there's stuff in there. What most people seem to realize is you can go beyond the boat, and you'll find a little rowboat which has a bit more loot. Always look around areas like that. Speaking of which, when you go into the sewers, and you're at the part where Joel and Henry open up this big gate and you swim underneath to go get a pallet for Ellie. Again, look on the right-hand side in the corner. You will see a passageway, and there is some loot in there that you can find. And there's another one in the sewers that I'll get to when I get to the pendants that people seem to miss. Another one that I inadvertently found that everyone seems to miss is when you are dealing with the sniper in the suburbs. If you go around the back of the buildings, and that's the recommended route, is go behind the buildings on one side or the other, You can actually do both sides and collect as much loot as possible. But when you go around the buildings on the right-hand side, and the right-hand side, and the very last building before you get to the end, you'll see some stairs at the back, a bit of a porch, deck, whatever you want to call it. You can actually crawl underneath there and hide from enemies, and also find some loot. And people seem to miss that. Also, people seem to sometimes miss the hatchets or axes, whatever you want to call them. There's one at the dam when you're fighting off the bandits, and there's another one for sure, one in David's town when Joel is going to find Ellie. You'll see it sticking in a tree at the house where all the hunters are at and running away to. And I also noticed one later on around the gas station area in a bedroom area of sorts. Also, when you are at the University of Eastern Colorado, there's an overturned truck to come across that has some loot in it that people seem to miss. Also, when you're playing as Ellie in the first area that you are with David, taking on infected, people are focused on the infected in front of them, beside them. Look behind you to the back left corner. There is a cabinet with a health pack in there, and people seem to miss that. Some catch it eventually, but it's there. Look around. Also, again, later, just after this part, when you're playing as Ellie, and when you are running around the top of that scaffolding or whatever you want to call it, to get that ladder down to David, there is a room that there was a clicker or two in front of. You kill that clicker, and there's some stuff in that room, including a pendant, and people sometimes kill the clicker and just run past that and miss it. Similarly, when you're in Bill's town, before you get to Bill's place, on your way there, you'll come across a shed, garden shed, tool shed, whatever you want to call it, that there is a clicker in front of, and I think there's one inside, and there's some stuff in there. People sometimes they sneak past that and they miss it. Also, one more here is when you're going in the tunnel towards the hospital, right when you enter, go to one corner, go into the other corner, go into the opposite corners, you'll find all sorts of crafting supplies and loot. And also check out some of the vehicles, more on that in a bit. You'll find stuff all over the place in that tunnel, lots of supplies, which you will need because there's lots of bloaters and infected in there. And one more tidbit for loot that people seem to miss, and this is in Left Behind, when you're playing with Ellie and you're in the loading docks, and you get to the part where you turn on the electricity and you go over to the other side. When you get to the other side, you open up these two overhead doors into, I guess it's on a loading dock there, and you pull out a cart of one of them to prop underneath the other door so that you can climb across it. What people seem to miss is that behind that cart that you pull out, there's actually some crafting supplies. So definitely check that out. And one more thing to mention regarding loot and crafting supplies is that people always miss ammo and other supplies because they are supposedly full. When you see that you are full on something, don't just ignore it. Craft everything you can so that you can pick it up, and also reload your gun so that you can pick up ammo. Just a little note on that. Let's move on to locations. People seem to miss various things about locations in the game. First of all, when you're at the university and you're riding around on a horse, there is a building that has an opening in it that I missed myself the first time around, at least the first time around, and I know other people do as well. If you look around, you'll see it. And there's an opening. You can go up some stairs, go around to a room next to that, and there is loot and stuff in there. Also, the sniper's nest at the university, I think several people missed that. I've missed that myself as well. You see the one room with the crafting table and loot, and you get that, and then you don't notice there's an upstairs that you can go to. Then there is the grave by the dam. Some people do not go to that little off the road path and you miss out the grave and a conversation piece there. It's worth checking out. Also, at the beginning, when you're with Tess and you're going through a bus and you see there's a fight going on outside that bus, a little fight club, you can actually try to get into that fight by going on the left-hand side of the bus, I believe it is, and there's a guy there to be like, no, you can't come in. So it's a little thing that people seem to miss, as well as all the little conversations that people are having throughout that area. Also, there is the door with the red X in Pittsburgh that you read about on a stash note. Most people don't realize that that door with the red X is something that you miss on the way to where you get the stash note, and they think it's still to come, and they miss it completely. If you don't sprint through the area and you actually look around, you'll see a door clearly marked with a big red freaking X that people somehow miss, and they're like, where is this? Where is it? I don't know where it is. You miss out on a lot of stuff if you don't get that door. And one more thing that people miss out, location-wise, is that Joel is from Texas. Not only is this implied by Tess referring to you as Texas, with the nickname Texas, but also, if you pay attention in the beginning, when you're in the vehicle with Tommy and Sarah, when you're playing as Sarah, you'll actually see a sign that says Austin on it, and that's where they're from. Even more to the point, when you're playing as Sarah, if you look at the newspaper that's in the back room, clearly you'll see that it tells you where it's from. And people miss that all the time. Let's move on to training manuals. There's only a few of these that people seem to miss. The first one is at the university building in that opening that I mentioned. You go through that opening, go up to the second floor, go out into the roof, and go around the corner or to the other side, and you will see there is a training manual for health upgrades. Another one is a bomb manual, which is on a truck in a tunnel that has a red line on it. People seem to miss that one. And there is a melee, or melee, however you pronounce it, upgrade, which is found in an attic in a house in the suburbs, which I myself missed, where if you look up, you'll see a triangle, and you have to pull the latch, the hatch for the attic, which falls down, and then you have to boost Ellie up, and so find this manual. So just a little heads up on that one. A few things regarding letters and notes. This is number 8. You're getting there. Letters and notes. First of all, there's Tess's list in the outskirts, right before you and Tess and Ellie head onto the elevator to go down to the tunnel, to head around the outside. If you go back into the room where Joel was taking a nap, you will see on the table Tess's list, which is a list of supplies that they're supposed to be getting or have gotten. Then there is an evacuation leaflet which is in the outskirts near a traffic light, and it tells you all about the evacuation stuff. It's a good find. People seem to miss that. The hotel safe combination. People seem to miss this one as well. When you go up the step ladder, if you go to the right side, and it's on the right, always look to the right, you'll see the broken stairs. But some people don't realize that you can actually shimmy around the edge of those stairs to the other side, and that's where the combination is. Then there's a medical pamphlet, which is on a truck in the outskirts. When you and Ellie and Tess are on the outskirts, and you climb over this climb over this truck, go to the other side, before you go into that overhead door that you have to open up, look back in that truck and you will find some loot. You'll find a note, medical pamphlet. Also, at the wharf, people seem to miss either the docks note or the shipping manifest, or both. You can find those right at the last part of the wharf. Most people just run around, kill guys, and get the hell out of there, and they miss stuff. When you are at the electrical plant, the hydro plant, you can get the plant schematics. You'll see 2 guys looking at it when you go through that area at first. You can't pick it up. but afterwards, when the bandits attack, you can go back there and pick it up. Most people miss that. The sniper's nest log, like I mentioned, people miss the sniper's nest, or you miss the log as well. The kitchen note. In Left Behind, there's a kitchen note at Fastburger, a crew photo in a boarded up SOP right after the helicopter, and an atrium note in the helicopter, or near the helicopter in a corner. Some people miss those. One more thing I want to mention about the notes is the smuggler's note. People seem to miss this. I know I've missed it myself. But the smuggler's note mentions Frank as a contact who wants to enter Boston and who has been supplying them with stuff. What Frank could that be? Why, yes, it is the Frank. That was Bill's partner. So it's interesting that they actually mentioned Frank before we actually ever meet Bill. And most people, of course, miss that, which is understandable. Moving on to Firefly pendants. Number 9, Firefly pendants, especially the ones hanging from trees and light posts. People seem to miss. I know I miss them all the time. And it was just because you're looking around for stuff on the ground, you're not looking up. You will find pendants hanging from a tree branch in Boston, in the downtown area. Also hanging from a tree in the suburbs. Hanging from a tree at the university. Hanging from a light post in Billstown. And hanging from a floodlight near the tent in Salt Lake City. Also, there is one in the museum where you have to shimmy along a ledge to get to. I know I've missed that one myself. A gazebo in the outskirts area before you enter the Capitol building. You have to go into the water and you'll find that one. Underwater, in a car, in the sewers, when you go to open that gate, there's a car underwater, you can find one there. Also behind a car on the highway near the tunnel. Behind a bus near the tunnel as well, I believe. There's also one in the lakeside gazebo that you can find as Ellie. And also at the dorm room at the University of Eastern Colorado, the bloater has one on him. So if you don't kill the bloater, you miss out on a pendant. And there's one on top of the RV in Billstown. I believe it's on top. And also, when you go into the sewers, and I know I missed this one the first time around, people always seem to miss it. Right when you enter the sewers, if you look on the right-hand side, again, it's on the right-hand side, as with most stuff, there is a little rectangular opening, a little rectangular sewer with water coming out, and that's right in your face, but people seem to miss that. You can actually crawl in there and you will find a pendant. And finally, number 10, let's get on to the comics. The first one that people seem to miss is when you're playing as Ellie in the wintertime, after you hunt down the deer and you chase after it and you get to where those buildings are before you meet David, before you go to the deer, go to the building on the left-hand side. Not only is there some loot, but there is a comic book that everyone seems to miss. Also, when you are in the tunnel, right before you get to the hospital, and you're crawling around on top of the air vents, there's one right at the very end of the air vent that some people miss. Another one that everyone seems to miss is when you start at the university level, people on the horse, they just start riding forward. What most people don't seem to realize is you can actually go back a few feet, several feet, and if you go back, you will find within a pickup, well, somewhere behind there, I don't know if it's in a vehicle or if it's just sitting on the ground, but you will find a comic book, as well as, I believe, supplements. So make sure when you start the university level, walk backwards a bit on your horse and you'll find this stuff. And the other one that everyone misses is right at the very end of the game, because most people are not expecting they're going to find anything at the last little part of the game when you're playing as Ellie. Plus, you're still dealing with all the traumatic stuff that has happened at the end of the game there. But when you're playing as Ellie in Jackson at the very end of the game, you can actually look around and search, and you will find in a pickup truck. The last comic book in the game. And everyone that I've seen play it misses it because they just follow Joel. They don't bother to look around for one reason or another. But it is there. So that is the top things missed in The Last of Us. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time with more